Hey everyone, welcome back to a brand new season of the Creative Boom podcast. I am your host, Katie Cowan. I'm the founding editor of the platform, and I'm really excited to kick things off with a very special guest, Brian Cannon. Now, if you've ever admired the album covers for Oasis or The Verve, well, this is the guy behind them. And I know many of you out there will be fully aware of who Brian is, given that he probably inspired your entire career in graphic design. So we'll be chatting about his journey, his incredible work at Microdot, and even hear some fun stories from his time during the 90s and that music scene, which was really a time when bands ruled the world. Plus, we've got some amazing guests lined up for the rest of the season, so stay tuned, hit that subscribe button. It's going to be a good one. Brian, it's an honour to chat with you. As a sort of northern girl myself, I feel very at home with a lot of the kind of stuff that you've been very lucky to sort of work in over the years. And you're a northern lad. I mean, how did it all start for you? You were in Manchester, weren't you, when you met Noel?
Well, yeah, it goes way before that, though. I mean, where did it all start? It all started in 1976, really, 77, when I was about 10 or 11, when I discovered punk rock. And what that did was it piqued my interest. At that point, I got into music as opposed to proper music, as opposed to just what happened to be in the charts, you know, like Bay City Rollers before that. And along came a desire to get involved. And the whole point to punk rock, I thought, was it demystified the whole process. Up until that point, the music industry was run by big corporations, and just, you know, after punk, it basically meant that young working class lads, the man in the street, could get involved, and it empowered the working class, really, because you didn't have to be involved with a big corporation to do it. You could put your own records out, design your own graphics, make your own clothes. You know, it was a very liberating movement. It was brilliant. But I realised pretty quick I didn't have the patience to play guitar, because obviously I wanted to be a rock star first. So I'm not mad on the head. But I'd always been interested in and good at drawing and illustration, encouraged by my father, who was an extraordinarily talented illustrator, but he never had the chance to do anything with it because, you know, growing up, he was born in 1925, my dad. He's not long ago died. He was in his 90s when he died. But you can imagine he was sort of working age in the Second World War, and there wasn't much call for illustrators in Wigan in the Second World War, especially from a background like he came from, very poor background. So he was made up that I had a chance to do something with it, and he encouraged me. So it was the mishmashing of two loves, the music and the art. I thought, how can I get involved then? So I thought, I know, I'll design the artwork. So that's what I kind of set out to do, that from being 11 in 77. And having gone through college, you know, be it foundation course in art and even degree level, you know, I was told that what I was trying to achieve, i.e. design record sleeves specifically, was too specific. You know, I needed to get a job in an agency and work my way up the ladder sort of thing, because you've also got to bear in mind, when I graduated, there's none of this, like everybody's got a laptop these days and everybody's a graphic designer all of a sudden. You know, back then, the equipment required to do the job cost 300 grand or something crazy like that. You know, you could buy a house for 20 grand back then. So to put it into, I didn't have 300 grand, obviously. So, but I didn't listen to them, and I left college, you know, saying I'm going to take on the world on my own. And it kind of just didn't happen, really, for quite a while. But it was always me plan from the get-go to do that. And despite the fact I was told not to, and they were right, obviously, I had no money, no contacts, no experience, nothing. And despite all that, I still managed to pull it off. So I think it's quite a remarkable story, really.
Yeah, you just kind of rocked up. And was it in London? Did you sort of go and find the paths of gold, as they say?
Well, what happened was, as you can imagine, in an industry, more so back then than now, because like I said, everybody's a designer, everybody's a photographer. You know, it's just much more accessible now, because the means of achieving the end are much more accessible. You can get a digital camera and a laptop for next to nothing these days and do, you know, really high quality stuff, whereas you couldn't back then. And it's about lucky breaks, because why, even when I graduated with a degree, and this is in the 80s, when having a degree actually got you a job. It's not like nowadays when they're throwing degrees around like confetti and they don't mean anything really. But back then, it was unusual for a working class lad from a background like mine to go and do an arts degree, right? So having got a degree should have got you a job, but I wasn't interested in getting a job. So, why would a record company give somebody a chance with no track record when they've got a guy in a studio next door they've used 20 times before, they know they can do the job? So that was the most difficult bit. But my lucky break was, it's nothing to do with both. I did a New York style graffiti piece on the side of a warehouse wall in Wigan in 1985 when I was 19. And that got spotted by a guy called Greg Wilson, who was like a leading DJ at the time. And he's back again now. He still is now, but he sort of went off for a while. And he couldn't believe it. He said he nearly crashed a car when he saw it, because he thought he'd see it was graffiti style in London or Birmingham or Manchester. But the first time he saw it was in Wigan. So he sent word out on the grapevine, who did this piece? And I ended up meeting up with him and became friends. And he was the guy that got me my foot in the door, because he started managing two bands and producing two bands. The Rap Assassins, which Kermit was in, who was then on to be in Black Grape, and his sister's band Kiss AMC, and they were signed to EMI Records, and Greg stipulated that I had to do the artwork. And that's how I got in, and that's how I got me lucky break, and that's how it all started developing from there. So I was living in London at that time, because when I left Leeds, where I did my degree in '88, I moved straight to London. And because that's where all the labels were, it's as simple as that. Not because although I like living in London, to be honest. But in 1990, I moved back to, I'm not from Manchester, I moved to Manchester in 1990, simply because I was going to the Hacienda every week. And not based on any business decision whatsoever, just the fact that I was going to this nightclub 200 miles up the road. So I thought, I'll relocate the business so I can get to this club easier. And that's basically what happened. And then I was in Manchester for the start of the 90s, which was amazing.
Yeah, God, what a time. And it had just come after the 1980s, which are obviously really tumultuous and depressing, and the government at the time, the miners' strikes. It was kind of a crazy era. And then the 90s happened and things started to feel optimistic, didn't they? And you were sort of in the kind of eye of the storm, I guess, especially later on.
Yeah, it was an incredible time. It was an amazing time to be in that city at that time, because the funny thing is, though, because unlike London, which is a vast city, Manchester's like a really big town, if you like. The scene could, involving everybody. I'm talking designers, musicians, DJs, there's about 200 heads. That's about it that you'd see everywhere you went. The same faces at all the gigs, in all the clubs. Whatever it might be, what's going on, and you see the same people all the time. And that's where I started. I'm not really a Manchester-centric sort of guy. This wasn't, because you've also got to bear in mind that nor were Oasis, right? This only dawned on me when I was watching Liam Gallagher at the Co-op the other week, right? When Oasis got signed, they had zero following in Manchester. It wasn't like the Stone Roses, who had a big following in Manchester, and they sort of rose, that sort of, the groundswell of that set them on the way. When Oasis got signed, they were going to gigs in a transit van with about half a dozen other mates, and that was their following. They were literally nothing. So, I did work with Inspiral Carpets before, but Noel got me that job after me meeting him in a lift. So, but I was moved back to London mid-90s, again, just because, well, it was mad because obviously Oasis was signed to Creation, which is a London-based label. There was no internet. So every time I had to send any artwork to print or to the record company for approval, I was having to fax it from a print shop on Wigan Lane near where I lived. I'd moved back to Wigan at this point. And literally, I thought, this is no good, this. And I contacted Alan McGee asking him, would he front me 10,000 quid, which was a fortune at the time, for me especially. Would he front me 10 grand on work that I was about to do for Oasis that year? And remarkably, he agreed to do it. And that then enabled us to, because I didn't even have a computer, I didn't have a Mac until 95. Not, it was all done. It was all done, pasted up in my bedroom, and so yeah, he lent me this money, which I obviously he deducted from money I was going to get that year, and I bought a basic system, a Power Mac, a monitor, a printer, and a black and white printer, and a scanner. This phone I'm talking through now probably has more power than all of that put together. And that was £5,000, and that was 30 years ago, right? So, and there was, with the money left over from that, we put a deposit down on a studio in Shoreditch, which is dead trendy now. But back then there was nobody in Shoreditch. That's why we went there. It was dirt cheap. But in calculating all this, this move of Microdot to London, because I was called Microdot then, there's me and Matthew who worked together. I'd made one fatal error in the calculations. I'd forgot that we had to have somewhere to live. So me and Matt lived in the studio for 3 months until Noel Gallagher moved out of his flat in Camden into that big posh house he bought in Belsize Park, and we moved into his flat. But yeah, it was an incredible time.
I bet it was. Why were you called Microdot? Was it to do with a, misspent youth?
Yeah, well, yeah, pretty much. In a nutshell, I think we don't need to go any further on that one. You obviously get it, yes?
Yes. It was the 90s, what can I say?
Exactly.
Yeah, it happened. I guess, with Oasis sort of making their comeback now, which has been in the sort of works for a while, it must feel quite nostalgic for you at the moment. You obviously done a lot of reflecting during your career because it was the thing that built it, but it must be particularly poignant right now.
Well, you say it's been the pipes for a while. Well, it hadn't really. I mean, we knew nothing about it. It's not like I had any forewarning. When it was the 26th or 27th of August, was it? The Tuesday they announced it. I genuinely didn't know at that point.
Really?
Yeah, honestly, I didn't. I mean, people would say, you must have. No, honestly, I didn't know. And if I did know, I'd tell you, of course, because the news is out there now. And I've been working with Noel Gallagher this year, repackaging Definitely Maybe for the 30th anniversary. And honestly, I didn't have the faintest clue. Maybe it was that, I was down in his studio in March. I can't believe it. I could be wrong. Maybe they haven't made the decision then. Who knows? But he certainly didn't give me that impression. But yeah, but it's incredible, really, because they're kind of omnipresent, even though they haven't been together for 15 years. They kind of have, haven't they? They're never out the news. They're just massive. And what's happened is it's kind of crossed the generational barrier now. So, I suppose like all Duran fans are middle-aged women kind of thing, and I think Duran are great, but there's not a big thrall of 18-year-old kids are all into Duran Duran, but there is Oasis. It's gone past that generation, and I think it'll just carry on going. And yes, it's great.
Testament to the branding, yeah?
Well, that's part of it, obviously. I mean, when they actually announced the night before the news was brought, because I started believing it, that it was the night before the announcement. I think it was after the Blossoms gig, and that logo of mine with just, instead of saying Oasis, just had the date in it. That came up like the following day. There's an announcement to be made, and everybody knew what it meant. I thought, yeah, that's like a McDonald's style exercise in branding, which was always the point in the first place.
Yeah, absolutely. And it all began on a sort of Union Jack, didn't it? And then it got transformed into something a bit more, that could last the distance of the different purposes it was going to end up being for.
Yeah, well, that Union Jack thing, that was the only thing in the 90s for Oasis that I didn't do. That was done by a guy called Tony French, who was a friend of the band. And they needed something, and that was done specifically for a cassette inlay, and it was full colour, obviously, and that worked fine. But, first rule of the logo is it's got to work in black and white, and not just half-tone. It's got to work in black and white, And that didn't, obviously. So whilst it served its purpose for what it was commissioned for, i.e. a cassette inlay, and it was later applied to T-shirts as well, that was fine. But by the time I'd got involved, we needed something that could be used on anything. And again, the thing with that logo was it worked great about that size and up, but once you got down to that, it just didn't. What is that? You couldn't work out what it was, either in colour or not. So we obviously needed some kind of logo type that would worked as a logo basically, because that wasn't a logo. That was, that was a graphic. That was like a sleeve in itself, wasn't it? It wasn't a
Yeah.
logo as such, I don't think.
Yeah, exactly. And do you think the logo still stands today? Are you proud of it still?
Well, yeah, because you've got to bear in mind that when I stopped doing the artwork, which was in 1999, and so 10 years, they did 10 years of using different logos. Yeah, now they're back together again. I mean, I don't even know if they're doing any new music, and I certainly haven't been contacted about doing any new artwork. But when they announced they were coming back, they used that their old logo. And you look on any comms now, anything that to do with that, the rebirth, if you like, they're back to the first logo. So that tells you all you need to know. They had 24, 25 years worth of logos to choose from, and they picked that one. So that says it all, I think. Yep.
Yeah, proud moment. And they kind of exploded onto the scene in the 90s at just the right time back then, when we were sort of like, we needed a sort of pick me up, didn't we? And we need, there was a lot of like national pride. I feel like they've chosen exactly the right time now to come back and make that, re-enter the scene.
Yeah.
Do you feel that way as well? I mean, it's more than just the brand. It's like just the right time, right place.
Oh, it is. But, the thing with Oasis, the timing, the first time, the time it is completely accidental. There's nothing contrived about it. They haven't thought, right, we'll leave it until the country's in a right state, and then and come back. There's nothing contrived about them. And people, I mean, up until recently, people were still saying to me, "Oh, this falling out, it's a put on, innit? It's just a marketing ploy." No, of course it's not. They haven't spoken to each other for 15 years. It's genuine now. But I mean, it is. The country's in a right state. I mean, I know we've just had a change of government, and but it's too early to see how they're getting on, despite what some other people might think. But yeah, it's not the greatest of times, isn't it? So something like this happening, and I did notice though, actually. Initially, there was a massive backlash, wasn't there? Everybody who thought Oasis was rubbish thought it was incumbent upon themselves to take to the internet and tell everybody that they thought Oasis were rubbish, right?
Keyboard warriors.
There's loads of bands I'm not into, and if I spent all my time ranting about bands I didn't like, I'd never leave the house to get anything done. It's like, forget it, just move on. But I think the bottom line is this, though: something that makes so many people so happy has got to be a good thing, especially when it's actually doing nobody any harm. It's not like we're bringing back public hangings that a lot of people might think is a good thing. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yes.
It's a good thing. And if you don't like it, well, just go and tune into some band that you do like and just stop annoying everybody else. What's the problem?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. I mean, it was the 90s, and you see all the kids dressing the way I did. You think, oh God, I'm getting old. Everybody's sort of reflecting back on that era, like it was really positive and upbeat. And I'm trying to remember, because I had a very good time in the 90s. Yeah. But it was, wasn't it? Of
course it was
optimistic, and it was, the music was great.
It was like punk all over again. It was like, people were forming bands, people were, putting their own design companies together, people were making their own clothes. It's just that punk rock thing all over again, which was kind of kicked off initially, nothing to do with rock and roll bands, Acid House. That's how that started, was, which I was heavily involved with as well. And I thought there's a massive crossover. Spike Island was effectively like an Acid House meets rock and roll synergy. I was there that day, and whilst the gig was rubbish, what a spectacle that was. But so like Tony Wilson said, the 90s began in 1989 when Ride on Time got to number one, and I know what he means. And that whole hacienda, it was an incredible time, because the 80s were quite a violent time and a divisive time, and it was the people coming together again. And despite what the media might say, I hate all this business how they've sort of labelled Oasis as some sort of like testosterone-filled male, aggressive, just in the same way that the media did with punk in the first place, saying that if you're into punk, you go to gigs and you spit at each other. It's all about violence. Of course not. It's about being creative and individual. And if you look back to that film of Nebworth that was out last year, was it?
Yeah.
It was like a hippie festival. It was, and there's 250,000 people there all weekend, and 10 people got arrested or something crazy like that. It was the most peaceful. A lot of girls there as well. You forget that it was a really chilled out, it was a fantastic experience. And that was just, the whole of the 90s for me, really.
Yeah, same. It was definitely coming together.
Mm-hmm.
And the clubs, I mean, did you was it just the Hacienda that you went to, or did you go all around the country? Because that was kind of our social media back then, wasn't it? That's what we did.
I was more into sort of like the rave scene as well, which was before, I stopped going to the Hacienda when you had to walk through a metal detector to get in.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Because that was the antithesis of what the whole thing was about in the first place. Basically, and the reason for those listening who don't know or didn't know this happened, the reason there was a metal detector there was because people were taking guns into the nightclub. Now, this is Manchester, for God's sake, not Chicago or Detroit, in the 70s. This is Manchester in the 90s. And I think it was at its peak for me late 89, the Hacienda, that is. It was still pretty good in early 1990, and it had gone completely by Easter 91. That's how quick that scene fizzled out because of gangsters and, well, basically, a lot of money was to be made from the drugs. I mean, there always was, but when it started off, it was people just selling drugs to each other as opposed to like gangsters getting involved to make money from the scene. And that's when it all started going downhill. And then, when there's vast sums of money involved and people are selling drugs, people then get protective of it. That's why the guns were involved, obviously, and people were getting shot and people were driving cars into nightclubs and all kinds of madness was breaking out. So that's when I kind of sort of tuned out of the whole thing. But and then well, the Oasis thing, I was working with the Verve in 92, so that kind of took over my life from the rave scene. I then got into the Verve and was travelling the country with them. And they preceded Oasis by a couple of years. And then Oasis and the Verve started touring together because I introduced them to each other.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, I gave Richard Ashcroft the first demo tape of what Oasis had made, and he was like, wow, so he invited them on the tour with him. So that was my hookup. And then that was 94 then, and then obviously it just went absolutely bonkers for the rest of the decade, really.
Yeah, I remember them playing it in Glastonbury 95, Oasis.
Headline,
and I think that was that was kind of their summer, wasn't it, when it all started to really kick off. Yep. Everybody was whispering and saying, you're going to go and see Oasis. They're this amazing new band from Manchester. Mm-hmm. It was an amazing time, really.
Incredible.
And it's that kind of balance, isn't it, between when it used to be really kind of raw and, kind of almost homemade and brought together by a bunch of kids who might have like thrown a house party and then it went into something else and somebody designed a flyer, to then, the commercial entities getting involved and ruining it all. And I guess the 2000s completely changed the clubbing scene completely. And in terms of like bands like Oasis back in the 90s, I guess there was that sort of little bit of raw charm. How did you feel when they started getting more popular and it was becoming more and more kind of commercial? And was it still magic, or?
No, it was amazing. It was always amazing whilst I was working on the project, because it was always only ever us. It didn't matter how big it got. It was still just me and Noel having the creative meetings. I did a BBC interview about the when we shot the Some Might Say sleeve, on the railway station with my dad with the wheelbarrow and all the rest of it. And the interviewer couldn't believe that other than the people in the shot, there was only me and the photographer there. There's no big crew or anything, There's no people with clipboards, people from the record company like you'd have nowadays. There's no need for it. Why do you want these? We'd always shoot. So that never changed, no matter how big it got. Well, BA now was kind of different, but that's because it was just a grandiose shoot as opposed to. But I always tried to keep it to the minimum of people involved, because why would you get loads more people in? And so our mode of working effectively remained the same throughout, regardless of how big they got. What did become troublesome, though, was just the attention of the press. Can you imagine? There was no social media then. It would have been even more bonkers then. But it was like Liam Gallagher having to lie low in my flat all weekend in Camden because he couldn't go anywhere because he was just getting hounded. That's when it became troublesome, not because we were doing anything different.
Yeah, it was a weird time, wasn't it? The tabloids sort of ruled in those days. Now you've got social media, so I don't know if it's exactly the same, but they played them quite well, I thought. They weren't stupid.
Well, the thing with the media is they caught on pretty quick that Oasis sells newspapers, but the the thing, it was genius, really. Again, this wasn't done on purpose. This just is because they're just so honest. The Sun or any of these tabloids, they couldn't get a dish in the dirt story on Oasis because Oasis did it themselves first. Yeah, so what? We take cocaine, big deal. Go on, write about it then. It's not like shock horror, Liam Gallagher caught with cocaine. I've told you already, you dickheads. I take big, so what? And so there was no scandal to be had, and that's just because that's just how honest they were. And
Yeah, made them popular.
Well, it's just that people can see that they're honest. I don't think they necessarily they never played on it either. They were just themselves. It really was just the most honest project ever to work on. It was great.
And you were there from the start, and you were involved in some of the tracks. You clapped on one of them. Your footsteps are in another. You're on an album cover yourself. As you've said, your dad was on another. It must have just been fabulous. But did you realise was it just like hanging around with a bunch of mates?
Well, it was, although I was obviously well aware of how big it was, but because like I reiterate what I just said a minute ago, that we didn't change. The world changed. We didn't. We were just at the middle of it all. The band didn't. The band, like I said, it just got more difficult going not for me. I mean, nobody's asked about me, but when they were recording Be Here Now, they had to swap studios, and that had to all be done under secretly. I mean, but even early on, they were checking into hotels under pseudonyms. Some of the names like Bonehead used to check in as Reggie Perrin and stuff like that. But it was all good fun. I think it just started getting a bit weary and the cracks started to appear by Be Here Now. But if you think about what they had been through, like I said, when we did stuff together, it was all very low-key, it was just us lot. But touring or even recording in the end became difficult because they were just getting hounded. And every time, Liam famously in that picture of him in the shop doing that, and that's just because he's at the end of his rope. He's only nipped out for a pint of milk, and there's 30 people there mithering him. And another thing that one of you stuff is, I've seen this. I've come out of a nightclub with Liam Gallagher, and people have been set up by photographers to say something really, really nasty about his wife to get a response out of him. Do you know what I mean? So then he will snap or throw a punch or tell somebody to F off or whatever, or bum somebody's over the camera to capture it. He's not a violent, nasty person. He's just provoked.
Yeah, that's what they did. All the tricks in the book.
Yep.
Terrible people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm glad I'm not in that camp. I'm just having nice chats with people.
Snap.
Yeah, exactly. So is it true that you sort of just used to, before you designed anything, you'd like say, can I have a look at the kind of lyrics? Can you write them out? And then I'll get inspired and we'll work with Noel and sit down and see what's what.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't even begin to. Still, to this day, nothing's changed. Not that I do that many sleeves anymore, but whatever I do, my approach always was, regardless of who I was working with, would be to immerse myself as much as possible into the culture of that band, be it hanging out with them, reading the lyrics, listening to the music, being present when they were recording, going on tour with them. Because I think it's blatantly obvious that the more you understand their creative process, your creative process with them is bound to be improved. I mean, there's no doubt about that. All the best work I ever did was for the bands I hung around with the most. Simple as that. And if you don't, I mean, I know, it used to be quite common that record sleeves would get done for records that the designer hadn't even heard. I mean, it's beyond my worst nightmare to even think of doing something like that. It's like making a suit for somebody you haven't measured. How can you do it?
Yeah, you got to get under the skin, I suppose.
Yeah.
And it's storytelling with photography, isn't it, really?
That's exactly what it is. All my sleeves
beautiful.
Back then were photographically based, because I just think that's the best way of doing it, and always with a narrative. Sometimes more elaborate than others. Sometimes I'm not even quite sure what it means myself, but there's always a story being told.
What's your favourite story that was told, and for what album?
My favourite sleeve is actually a single, and it was, some might say, the one with my dad on it, and my mum. Because it's very literal, and that was Noel's idea in that case. Actually, it's actually all the lyrics to the song in one picture. standing at the station in need of education. The sink is full of fishes. My dad's pushing a wheelbarrow full of fishes. All the words of that song are in that picture. So I think that's pretty cool.
Would you do anything differently if you could go back?
No, because, what's the point in even thinking like that? It's what's done is done. I can honestly hold my hand up, and this is true, this actually. I can honestly put my hand on my heart and say everything that I did back then was done to the best of my ability at that time, given whatever, time constraints, budget constraints, whatever it might be. Everything was done to the best of my ability. And if you can honestly say that, and I really can, certainly about Oasis and Verve sleeves, if I was to do them now, perhaps I might have done them differently, but I wouldn't have changed anything that I did then because they were genuinely done as good as they could have been.
Yeah, that's great. That's good to know. You can look back on your career and be proud. And the technology's changed loads during that time. I mean, were you always somebody that embraced it, or were you always a little bit kind of,
Well, the technology, I mean, I do a lot of lecturing at universities. Well, I did. I've not done many for a while. But the technology, I think, if you're not good, or if you're not really devoted to it, all this new technology does is help you make shit faster.
Exactly.
I don't necessarily think that I was working without I did definitely maybe, and all the singles off of it. I didn't have a computer. Didn't use one. Didn't have one and didn't use one.
Yeah.
Period. All the typesetting that was done in it, it's not like now where you're looking at a screen and you're laying your text out. It was done at a typesetting bureau where it's just code on a screen, a black screen with green letters on it. So you had to know your stuff. You had to know all about, I used to hand render everything and then take it to a typesetter all specced up. Now that's a forgotten art now. And I think, design students these days would do well to learn stuff like that because it gives you a better appreciation of typography. Of course it does. But as for technology, it just speeds things up, doesn't it, really? I mean, that's all it does. I mean, I don't necessarily think, I use cameras and I use computers, right? So if you think about it, the difference in cameras now is to what we were using in the 90s. I don't think optically there's that much of a difference. You can only go so far with it, can't you? And the primary difference is you can see what you've got instantly now, whereas back then we'd have to go to the lab and have it processed. That's why we used to have to overcompensate and shoot loads of shots because you didn't know what you were getting until the following day. You could Polaroid it and have a look, but that just gives you an approximation. It's not the same stock as you're shooting on.
Yeah.
So that's one main. It's just a speed thing, isn't it? I don't necessarily think it doesn't help me in the creative process. And if you know good, you know good. It doesn't matter what tools you've got, And if you, like I say, just help you make shit faster. Yeah, but obviously I use one thing I do like actually is I'm into really high res photography at the minute. So and the cost of it is all coming down clearly. To shoot the. I mean, I did that new Definitely Maybe black and white sleeve, in the studios. That was done on a relatively old camera, that Canon 5 DSR, which is like a 15 megapixel camera. So the resolution on it is absolutely amazing. And there's a new Fujifilm out now that's double that resolution that I'm looking at getting. But it's 100 megapixels. So that's kind of interesting. I think that you can. I really like that pin sharp, digital vibe. I never shoot on film. I know purists who argue with me that, you're not a proper photographer unless you shoot on film. I never bother anymore because it's just, I don't know. I don't, unless you know, I think, again, I'll have the purist screaming at the computer saying, no, you must shoot on film. But I don't anyway, and I don't think it does me any harm. So,
how many cameras have you got currently?
Currently, usable cameras, probably 4, I think.
Oh, that's not too bad.
No, I mean, you don't need shitloads of them. I mean, I've got loads of different lenses, obviously, but camera-wise, that Fujifilm, I forget it's 100 megapixel. So you're basically looking at medium format on Yeah, I think,
Yeah.
I get price-wise, I think it's about 3 or 4 grand, which, is a lot of money for a camera, obviously. But if you're using it as a working tool, I don't think it's too bad. It's not like you're having to spend £20,000 or something, which is a lot of money, you know what I mean? But,
Yeah. That's the thing as well. It makes it more accessible, doesn't it? It means, any kid can buy a nice camera these days.
exactly. And you don't even need to spend that much money. You can get a full-frame Canon second-hand DSA in top nick for 700 quid,
Yeah.
5D Mark II. It's a great camera. So that's another thing. The industry, you say these technological advances, but a lot of it is marketing, isn't it? And this happens in all industries. I mean, be it wristwatches, be it cameras, computers. iPhones is a classic. I mean,
Yeah.
what's the difference? What's this? Why have I got this new one? It's the same as the last one, maybe a bit bigger, or just tiny incremental improvements. So,
Very clever.
if you're a young, creative person these days, you can get yourself set up for next to nothing, really. Whereas, like I said, when I started, that was impossible, literally impossible. You'd have to spend tens of thousands of pounds 30 years ago, which would probably equate to hundreds of thousands of pounds now. And there was no way around that. That's why I mean, there's bits of these up here. I mean, a lot of it isn't mine, obviously, but some stuff up there is. And I used to work doing a lot of collage. And I still, these days, I tend to do digital collages, but that was a way of but I didn't do it because I didn't have a computer. I just did it because I love doing it, and I still do. But, you get some great effects without having to do anything digitally. And I think, again, I would advise young designers to put your computers away for a bit and go and make some marks on things and then photograph it or scan it in or do what, it's obviously going to get digitized at some point. There's no getting away from that. But making things, making marks on things, I like doing that.
You like collecting as well. I can see from your lovely studio, you've obviously, like to hang on to things that make you feel nostalgic and feel creative.
Yes, definitely. Where I am here now, I can walk around with this thing, can't I? Look. So this is, here we go. So, but in here, this is stuff that has influenced me as opposed to my own work. But when you come out here into more of the gallery area, this is all the stuff that I've done for Oasis. That's all Oasis stuff. This stuff here is all Northern Soul photography that I've done.
Oh, great. That's how my in-laws met.
Me and my missus too. And this is all Oasis originals. Then down this way is more Verve stuff.
Great.
So, there's a lot of gear in here. And I'll just pop you in here so I can say hello to these. And this is where all our order fulfillment happens.
That's a great place. Where's that? Where is that in Kendal?
Yeah. It's an old woolen mill. There's been a mill on the site for nearly 1,000 years.
Oh, I love that. I love working somewhere where there's a bit of history.
Yeah, they used to make the carpets for Concorde in this building.
Oh, wow. That's a nice fact.
Isn't it? Yeah.
Oh, I love stuff like that.
So it's a great studio. You will, anytime you like,
I'd like a little tour and say hello.
Yeah, for sure. Come do
It's great. Have you got a favourite piece that you've kept?
Robert Rauschenberg is probably my favourite artist. Do you know Rauschenberg?
Mm-hmm.
So this is a Rauschenberg piece here. Can you see that? Can you see that?
Yeah, wow.
So that's silk screened. The late 60s, I think that was done.
Good grief.
Yeah, that's amazing. I'm also a big fan of this. Is talking about collage. This is by Roe Houseman. That was done in the 1930s.
Dear Lord.
Yeah, it couldn't even be 20s. That I'm not sure.
That's incredible.
So, yeah,
original.
So that I wish it was. And then the classic. This is the picture that I cite as being an influence for Definitely Maybe. But it looks nothing like Definitely Maybe. It's the Arnolfini wedding by Jan van Eyck. right?
Yes.
And the reason why that is an inspiration for Definitely Maybe is, whilst it looks nothing like it, it is littered with little visual metaphors and all telling a story. And if you look around the Definitely Maybe, see, that's kind of dotted with little things that mean things as well. So that's that. So
It's a dream job, isn't it, really? I mean,
oh yeah,
you've just been so lucky, obviously talented. I'm not suggesting it's all luck, but right place, right time, met a
yeah,
really nice crowd of people in Manchester, probably
yeah.
had the time of your life. And still alive to tell the tale.
Yes, still alive. A completely different life now. I gave up drinking 7 years ago, so that's
Congratulations.
yeah. Thank you. That made a world of difference.
Hmm.
And everything's just groovy, and it's been amazing to be back involved with Oasis again this year, doing that 30-year thing on Definitely Maybe. And as you can see, we're thriving here, and yeah, everything's just grand. I love it.
Yeah. And do you get out in the hills much where you are?
I do. I walk to work every day. This is another. I mean, we've only been in this building 2 months, right?
Great.
And I can walk. For me, I live about 2.5 miles away, and it's over a fell.
Nice.
So I've walked here every day for the past 2 months, regardless of the weather, right? And in doing so, I have lost 19 pounds in weight. Right?
Good grief.
Yeah, yeah. I needed to. That's why I did it. But it's like on a day like today, where there's literally not a cloud in the sky. We can see out here. See that hill up there.
Yeah.
Can you see that? That's I walk over there every day, and it's good for the head, and it's good for the soul, and it's good for losing weight and all. And yeah, I love it.
Do you never kind of feel like you're missing out? Should be back in London, should be in the throb of it all, or is the internet you just don't need that anymore?
You don't need it. I mean, even though I'm in Cumbria, which is miles away from anywhere really, Oxenholme Station is 10 minutes away. I can be in London literally in 2 3/4 hours.
That's good, isn't it?
Yeah, 2 3/4 hours, and I'm in central London from here. So, but you've just seen, I've just walked around our studio, and there's another room I didn't even walk into now, which is our framing room and woodworking, where we create physical stuff as well. Well, we couldn't, if this was in London, it'd be cost prohibitive, wouldn't it? So, there's that as well. I mean, this is it's just great here. I love it. I'm from Lancashire originally, obviously, but I regard Cumbria as home now.
That's good. It's nice to feel home somewhere.
It is.
Nothing worse than feeling misplaced.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Oasis, they're going on tour again, obviously. I guess there's never going to be a time like the 90s in terms of bands. Bands aren't as big as they were. I mean, when you look on any of the sort of music charts, the bands just kind of aren't there anymore, are they?
No, there's a reason for that as well. And the reason is this. Because bands, well, nobody sells records anymore, right? So the income stream for record companies is virtually cut off.
Yeah.
And to develop a band, if you think about it, when Oasis or The Verve or any band from that era was signed and put out, even the smaller ones on the smaller labels, it costs tens, if not hundreds of thousands of pounds before you've even got a record out. You've got to give the band in advance some money to live on. You've got to buy them equipment. You've got to put them in a studio because you can't record it at home on a laptop like you do now. Then you've got to physically manufacture things. And there's no internet, so you have to pay for magazine advertisements and all the rest of it. So they would develop a band, right, over a period of time. And they wouldn't just throw the towel in if the first record didn't go well. There's a massive investment in this band, so it's incumbent upon them to keep going until they get some return. Whereas nowadays, there is none of that because there's nothing to sell. So record companies are like, well, how do we make any money out of this? And I struggle to find out how they do it, to be honest. But these days, to be signed to a record company, you've kind of got to do all the hours. Bear in mind, like I said before, Oasis were completely unknown when they were signed, other than literally a handful of people in Manchester who knew them. They were completely unknown. To get signed these days, you've got to have 100,000 followers on Instagram. You've done all the hard work for them, effectively. They know you're already up and running. You've already got a following. You've already got guaranteed ticket sales, guaranteed merchandise sales.
They can't take the risk anymore, can they? That's the thing.
Yeah, because there's no money coming back in the other side. The only way to make any money out of a band these days is by selling gig tickets or merchandise. Now, who's going to buy? You can't sell a lot of gig tickets unless the band's relatively well known, and it's just a catch-22 in it. Then how do you do it? I just don't know. So I don't recognise the industry anymore. I don't have very much to do with it. I'm more concentrated on developing my own brand at the minute. Obviously, we sell a lot of Oasis-related stuff, which is what I've created over the years, clearly. But I want to get more into, we're doing it like a band would. Again, we've got just shy of 50,000 followers on Instagram. So what I'm going to do is, the plan is, and this was always the plan, is to take our own brand and then sell it back to the followers who follow us as a result of working with all these cool bands. And that'll be in the form of art that isn't band specific. It'll be clothing in terms of, T-shirts, sweatshirts, jackets, whatever else we might want to make, and accessories, which can be anything. I mean, I did some Microdot branded ammunition tins, and they're sold out. I mean, Jill, my partner, you just met, she's like, what on earth have you bought them for? You're never going to sell. I mean, they were genuine ex-army ammunition tins, big things.
And they sold.
I sold it like that. I said, you don't get it, love. This is a lad thing. All I did was I put them in the shower in our house. I had to wash. They were literally genuine XR. They'd been used. They were filthy. I got them from next to nothing from this military wholesaler. I washed them all down in the shower in our house, dried them all off, then cut a stencil and branded them up with a Microdot stencil. Right?
God, it's like the 80s again.
Exactly, punk rock. This is what I'm saying. This is what don't become computer and digitally obsessed, kids. Get out there and get your hands dirty. And
I think you're onto something.
I'm telling you. And they went like hotcakes, and people use them to store all sorts of nonsense in, or just use them as it's a Microdot branded ammunition tin, isn't it? So, like Supreme, people buy Supreme stuff and don't use it, just keep it in the boxes. That's the kind of where we want to go, to be able to brand anything up and sell it. I mean, like, when I see Supreme do like crowbars and shit like that, it's like, I think it's hilarious. If we could get into that kind of position, that'd be great. But, I don't think we're going to be that big, but,
Well, you inspired a whole generation of graphic designers, didn't you? Probably a lot of lads. I'm sure lots of girls as well. But there's just a huge industry out there now, and you're up there in the Hall of Fame along with some of the other greats. It's just, I still to this day get emails and messages from people, like you said, all over. I became a graphic designer or a photographer because of you, and it still touches me, and it always will. And it's the ultimate accolade, is that. So I'm absolutely made up. What was the nicest thing anybody ever said to you? Because it always stands out. I think if somebody does get in touch and they've sent you a really nice, poignant message, it always stays with you.
Well, there's got to be trumpet. There's that many of them, and they kind of all say the same thing. I mean, some are quite personal, so I won't go into details. But I had one the other day. I mean, it was about a fella he's just discovered our YouTube channel. I don't know if you've seen any YouTube videos.
Yeah. It's fun to watch.
And it was quite a sad story, actually. His wife had just died, and he's left with a 14-month-old child, and I'm not going into any more. But he said he found solace in just watching our videos, and it been a massive inspiration to him, and he thanked me for it. So, when somebody says, I mean, I'm welling up now thinking of it. When people say that, you think, wow, it's more than just, me taking pictures or designing something. This actually means stuff to people, so that's cool.
Did you ever think you would make sort of a career out of just taking pictures? I mean, it's obviously more than that. I'm being sarcastic in a way there. It's just, I mean, back in the sort of mid 80s, to do a career like what you ended up doing was just, it wasn't as big or as heard of as it is today. It wasn't really an option. So you just kind of forged your path.
Yeah, but no, this is the remarkable thing. I had no doubt I would do it, and I don't know why, because I'd never done it before. I had nothing to, I hadn't done it before. I had no experience or anything. Yeah, I was convinced, and I just knew I could do it, and I did it. And so, yes, not being blasé about it, this was always the point. There was never a plan B, and that's kind of why I did it, because that's why I became successful, because there wasn't a plan B. I had nothing else to fall back on. And when it wasn't working at the beginning, I didn't think, oh, sorry, I'll go and get a job. And I just kept going. And even to the point where it got so bad that in the early 90s, before I started working with the Verve, my mother was having to send me food parcels.
Oh,
I'm a grown man with a degree, and my mum's sending me food parcels because I thought, no, I'll crack this in the end, and I did, which is quite remarkable.
what were in the parcels?
Oh, all sorts of goodies. But I say all sorts of goodies. My mum was a terrible cook, but I mean, I loved her very, very much, and I love my mother dearly. And she's no longer with us, but she was a shocking cook. So those things I can just make myself. I can't even remember.
Oh, that's so sweet. Yeah, I think kids today who are sort of, starting out, they've got a different kind of pressure. There is the chance to become, learn anything, do anything. They've got the technology. They can be very efficient about things. But the competition, I mean, the whole industry is saturated, really. And so many kids these days want to do graphic design or illustration. And now you've got all this AI coming in and people are worried about what's going to happen there. Personally, I think it's just going to make people more efficient. It's going to probably end up creating more jobs, but that's my opinion.
Tool, isn't it? It's another tool. I mean, I don't know if I never paid any attention to this technology business, because I just regarded it as a tool, and I don't know how far down the line with AI. I mean, I think people say AI, they throw that term about too easily these days. It's not AI, it's computer generated, a lot of it, isn't it? I mean, true AI, we're nowhere near it, surely, which is, isn't it, where the computer's thinking for itself. That's what AI literally means, isn't it? All you're looking at these days is really tip-top computer generated stuff. I could be wrong, you tell me, you're more, but do you know what I mean? That's AI, but no, hang on a minute, you just mean photoshopped. You know what I mean? That's a common thing. But, I mean, the thing is, though, in any given era, it's the same for everybody, though, isn't it? When I started off doing it, I mean, everybody wants to be a sleeve designer or work with bands or be a graphic designer in that sort of entertainment field because it's a dead sexy job and there's very few opportunities to do it. And that's why the competition's intense, To do it properly, for every person like me, there's 10,000 graphic designers who are doing less sexy stuff, isn't there? And that's just always the way it will be.
Yeah.
And at any given point, it's the same for everybody, isn't it? If I started off now behaving like I did back then, I'd seem like a stone, but it was different then. But then again, it was the same for everybody back then, wasn't it? So, who knows?
You shared that self-belief that the Gallagher brothers had. They had that kind of, unnerving confidence. They believed in themselves. And that got them places,
That's it.
Do you know what?
That is it. But, and there's a caveat to this. You can't just go blindly turning off and say, yeah, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. You've really got to temper that with, you've got to assess your own capabilities. And I'll give you an example for this. There's no point me saying, I said I'm going to design the best sleeves for the biggest bands in the world. And I actually did it because I thought I could. And I genuinely believed I could. However, if I'd have said I'm going to captain England at football, I'm rubbish at football. You see what I mean? So you've really got to assess and, is this realistic? Can I do this? And if there's even the slightest niggling doubt in your mind, you've got to abandon it because you can't do it, because to do something like they did or I did, it is quite remarkable, really. And, there's no point having a go unless you know you can do it or there's a chance that you can do it because you just get disappointed in the end, Because like you just said yourself, the competition is intense. I mean, I don't know how people, but I think that the rudiments of it are the same. Basically, you've got to put yourself in a position whereby something might happen for you. That's the key to doing this, right? Now, I did that by doing a mural on the side of the wall. I didn't do this mural to think, right, one day some producer guy might see this and get me into. But by creating in a public space, it put me in a shop window, if you like.
Yeah.
So there's no point saying you for example, I don't know, you want to be a graphic designer working for football teams, right? If you never go to football, you see what I mean?
You've got to get in with the right people.
Exactly, because that's all it boils down to. You've got to be within the arena that is relevant to what you want to do. So, you quite often see people advising young designers who want to get involved in doing records. See, doing record sleeves, I mean, you can't make a living at it anymore. You just can't. Right? I don't care what
No.
anybody says. You can't just do record sleeves. Well, you could, but you'd have to do 50 of them a week, right? Or however, that's a bit much. But, there's just not enough money out there to sustain you doing that. So, what do I know? It's a totally different world to what I was involved in. But the advice is still the same, though. If you want to be involved in doing something creative, there's always a way of making it happen. How you monetize that is something I wouldn't be too. People say, like, if you want to do records, hang out with bands and do it for nothing. I don't know if that's such good advice, because everybody's hanging out with bands and doing it for nothing. And as a result of which, nobody can make any money out of it anymore. Because that's the first thing. When people stopped selling records, the first thing to go was the record sleeve budget, marketing budgets. That's the first thing that went.
Oh, it's always the marketing.
Yeah, because everybody's got a camera. Everybody's got a mate who's got a laptop who'll do it for nothing, So...
Yeah.
But you can't dig your heels in and say, oh, well, I want $2,000. Well, sod you then. We'll just use the guy who dropped the laptop. He'll do it for now. Do you see what I mean?
It's happening now.
Yeah, I know. And it's happening in the professional realm as well. People often contact... I mean, I'm in a different position now because I don't need to do it. I have a business that sustains, me without having to. It's quite a luxury, actually, just being able to pick and choose what jobs you want and pretty much picking your own price as well, within reason, obviously. I mean, I can't say somebody I want 100 grand for doing it, because I just won't get it. But I'm an exception, aren't I? It is very difficult for young creatives these days because there's that many of them, like you say. There's very little work that's paying any decent money, and everybody's trying to cut each other's throats and do it for nothing just to get in,
Almost seems insensitive to then ask you, when you said you remember when Oasis was really sort of becoming popular. Mm-hmm. When did you because you were in the midst of it all, when did you sort of think, sit back and go, good grief, I've really achieved something here. This is the pinnacle of my career? Or was it never like that? Were you always just like chasing the next?
No, by the second album, that basically when the traffic would stop. It all changed because I was hanging about with Liam before they were famous. And then when we were living in Camden in 95, and Liam would come round and see us, when cars were screeching to a halt in the street, around that time, I thought, wow, this is getting bonkers now. So yeah, Morning Glory era, which would have been 1995. But it never affected the way we worked. That was secondary. It was just, they are massive, but we've still got to do a job here.
Yeah, and hanging out with them, I guess. Were you closest to Noel in that case?
When it came to work-wise, the creative meetings were always just me and Noel. And I don't know. I mean, initially I was more friendly with Noel. Then I suppose he's busier. I'll be hanging about with Liam. But it's not an either-or situation. We were all friends and we all got on great and we all hung out,
They were very down to earth. I remember I used to work briefly for a old keyboard and synthesizer place where they used to sort of buy in old models and then redo them and resell them on. And they had a lot of clients in the music industry. And one day in this little town in Stoke-on-Trent, Bonehead pulls up in I think it was a brown, not Rolls Royce, a Bentley, I think. And he just pulled it up on the curb, this huge thing, got out. He was wearing some kind of like brown leather jacket, his, trademark bald head. And he came upstairs and got this, I think it was like a drum machine at the time, and picked it up and as if it was nothing in the world, and off he went. Yeah. And I remember texting my friends at the time and saying, you'll never guess who's just been here, because they were huge back then. They still are.
Yeah, they're just the same now. They're down to earth. Always have been. I was like I said, I was with Noel earlier this year, and he just hasn't changed. And I think it's quite remarkable, having been through what he's been through, just to be the same person, which is astonishing, I think.
Do you think they're going to smash it? Do you think they're going to enjoy? Because is there a chance that Liam could storm off the stage?
I'm not a person to ask about this, because if you'd have asked me the day before the announcement was made, I said there's no chance, it's never going to happen. Well, not never. But I don't know. I think we all mature and chill as we get older, don't we? You know? And I know the brothers, but I can't see them falling out. Not mid-gig, not like they used to. No, I think I'd be very surprised if anything mental like that happened.
Are you going to go?
Oh, yeah, I'm going to the first Wembley show.
Oh, brilliant. Well, you'll have to let us know how it gets on.
I will.
Yeah. You'll be feeling, oh my God, this is so weird, back again. I mean, how long, when was the last time they were together on stage?
2009.
Good grief. That was when Creative Beam started.
I wasn't at that gig. The last time I saw them play live would probably be about 2004. So wow. 20 years ago.
So it'll be a special moment.
No, it'll be incredible. I've no doubt about it. It will be something else, yeah, I'm sure. Still yet to be decided who's actually in the band, I guess. They haven't announced that yet. So, yeah, there's still a lot hanging in the balance, you know, but, yeah, it'll be incredible. Can you imagine the crowd when they first take to the stage? It'd be something else.
That'd be incredible. It's a shame I missed out. We were kind of looking at each other, me and my husband. We were like, should we get some tickets? Should we go? And we just got busy and didn't go for it in the end. And idiots. It's one of those things. Well, Brian, this has been absolutely lovely. Thank you so much for chatting and taking us down a trip down memory lane. Best of luck with the new venture in lovely Kendal. Thank you very much. Thanks for asking me on in your show. I really enjoyed it. All's good. Thank you. A huge thanks to Brian Cannon for joining me and sharing all those incredible stories for the Creative Boom podcast today. I hope you enjoyed hearing about his journey as much as I did. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss out on more exciting guests to come later in the season. As always, thanks for listening. Catch you next time.